Welcome to the Bible Breakdown. It's a black man and woman in America who no longer identify as believers. This show contains adult languages, themes, and isn't meant for children. As black people, we respect the history of the black church in America, but its current state is massively abusive, and we think the Bible might be part of the problem. Listen and let us know what you think. Peace. Welcome back to the Bible Breakdown. I'm your host, Kat.
I am TK.
Hello, TK.
Hello, Kat.
Happy Bible.
Happy Bible. Happy belated Mother's Day.
Thank you. Yeah, because this will probably be airing in June. So, yeah. But for people who are curious as to how my Mother's Day went, it was fantastic. Even though I prefer a more leisurely Mother's Day, the activities that I did were not unpleasant, and I really did get to revel in the joy of being a mom.
It's fantastic. That's all we can ever ask for.
Yeah, even though there's no really good parenting advice in the book we're reading right now, which is the Bible. We are on let's see, book 1 Kings chapter 19 is what we're starting today of the New Revised Version. And we've been doing this podcast for almost 3 years. We've read let me count
Almost
down.
4.
Almost 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Started in
5, 6,
2020.
7, 8, 9, 10. So we're in our 11th book of the Bible. To be fair, we haven't been super consistent, but we've kept doing it. So that is a type of consistency. So even if we don't necessarily post with consistency, but yeah, there's not a ton of advice on how to raise healthy, productive children. There's advice on how to beat them and sell them, though.
Yeah, not really a fan of that, especially when I was a kid.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, fortunately, I was never sold. Were you ever sold?
I was not. However, I was around somebody one time that said that their kid belongs to them in the sense of they were their property. And I pushed back on that. And I was like, yeah, nobody owns me. And then they were like, yeah, I do. My mom didn't say this, but she was standing right there. Actually, another gentleman said this. And I was just like, I'm not, no. And for some reason, that was controversial for me to say that at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, that's sad that was a controversial statement, like the idea, but unfortunately, children are beaten and sold across our world every day. So, and the Bible's not helping because it's I mean, a lot of people who profess belief in the Bible are helping, but that just kind of proves my point, which is people have to do the work. It's no like magical God. Like it's not Sky Daddy, it's people. So when we have good lives, it's because of people. And when we have bad lives, it's because of people. And nature.
There's no in between.
But yeah, for I kind of like the standard of living we have now. I'd like it to be better, of course, but I definitely don't want to go back to these days. Do you remember what happened on the last Bible breakdown?
So that was 16 through 18, if I recall. Wait.
Yeah.
Right? First
Yes.
Kings 16 through 18? Yes.
Yep.
So that would have taken us down a path of Ella reigns over Israel. I don't remember. Wait. Is that correct? No, that's not correct. First Kings, right?
Yeah.
New Revised Standard Version?
Yeah.
Why does this look new to me? Elijah predicted a drought. The widow of Zarephath.
Oh no, I
Elijah
remember
revives the
this.
widow's
This
son.
is yeah, because I remember Elijah triumphs over the priests of Baal because he kept putting water on the altar. Is this it?
Huh.
Oh wait.
I mean, that is what
Oh, okay. No. Yeah, this was it when they put that's how they had a god off because the priests of Baal couldn't make their altar catch on fire, and Elijah could after putting a bunch of water
No,
on it.
no, no. Actually, I'm saying no, no. You're totally correct.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Jeepers, that is a lot
I
of
don't,
what it's like being a mom, by the way. My daughter does
I
that
don't
to
know
me all the
why the
time. I'll ask her a
title.
question and she'll say no, but the answer is clearly yes. She just doesn't want to say yes to me.
Yeah, that doesn't change. I've learned even for adult women, they just like to.
Well, or men, you
Not
just
all of
did
them.
that to me.
No, I said yes. It's not because I didn't want to say yes.
Eventually,
It's
but first
because,
you said no. Like that was the point.
but it's
Anyway,
not
that
because I wanted to be combative. It was because this was not looking familiar to
I don't
me.
think my daughter's
And so,
trying to be combative, but yeah, it's fine. So yes, we apparently read 3 very unmemorable chapters last time. Except for to me, the water one stuck out because it was supposed to be this huge flex.
yeah, I do remember.
A huge flex would have
Oh,
been like not having a drought at all. Oh, because that was the one too where he told that woman to make him some food.
yeah, we talked about that. I do remember that conversation because it was like this is
Okay.
just a random
Okay, so
person because
it
she
was
was gonna
kind of
kill her.
memorable.
She was gonna kill herself and her son, and
Yeah.
um, he just kind of showed up to, and she
Because
was like, "Oh, let me
starving to
just
death
stop
feels
killing
terrible.
ourselves."
Well, starving to death feels
Yeah.
terrible. So I can not that I've ever been in that position, but I could imagine like when you read about people living in hellish conditions, like a lot of times they're like, I can't take this another day. So but yeah, so that's what
Um.
we've been following Elijah around. He seems to be God's number one guy these days because Israel was kind of breaking up. Israel and Judah are already they're just having problems. They can't work it out. There was a drunken murderer, I think, or no, there was a guy who killed a drunk guy. It's just yeah, this Jeroboam stuff. It's messy. Oh, and then we have the Jezebel um
Yes.
who like she had killed the priest of Israel, and so that's why Elijah had to come in and kill her priests. And this is why the Bible is always like you don't want a Jezebel around because they mess up the game.
Yeah, I always thought Jezebel just meant whore. But
I think it does. I don't think this is like really an actual like it's the whole thing of like, they're not great on naming women in the Bible. So it's like let's just call her it's just their word for slut. But here at the Bible Breakdown, we love sluts. Power to the sluts.
yeah, we do. All right. With that being said, do you want to jump into 1 Kings 19?
Yeah, that's all you.
Ah, that it is. Elijah flees from Jezebel. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "Tell me the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." Then he was afraid. He got up and fled for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belonged to Judah. He left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. "It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. Suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." He looked, and there at his hand, there at his head was a cake baked on hot stones in a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. The angel of the Lord came a second time, touched him, and said, "Get up and eat, otherwise the journey will be too much for you." He got up and ate and drank. Then he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the Mount of God. At the place he came to a cave, and he spent the night there. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, What are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away. Elijah meets God at Horeb. He said, Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind, and after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake, and after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire, and after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Then there came a voice to him that said, What are you doing here, Elijah? He answered, I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I am not alone. I am alone. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life. And they are seeking my life to take it away. Then the Lord said to him, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king over Aram. Also, you shall anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, as king over Israel. And you shall anoint Elisha, son of Saphat of Abel Meholah, as prophet in your place. Whoever escapes from the sword of Hazael, Jehu shall kill, and whoever escapes from the sword of Jehu, Elisha shall kill. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. Elisha becomes Elijah's disciple. So he set out from there and found Elisha, son of Shaphat, who was plowing. There were 12 yoke of oxen ahead of him, and he was with the 12. Elijah passed by him and threw his mantle over him. He left the oxen, ran after Elijah, and said, Let me kiss my foot, and I will follow you. Then Elijah said to him, Go back again, for what have I done to you? He returned from the following, took the yoke of oxen and slaughtered them. Using the equipment from the oxen, he boiled their flesh and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he set out and followed Elijah and became his servant. Thanks be to God. What was that, man?
Okay, I think this is okay, God's coming back, baby. He's got one prophet left and he's going to make it count. So he's, on the
Yeah.
run. God sends an angel, or maybe, I don't know. It doesn't say the Lord sends an angel. An angel just shows up, sees Elijah on the side of the road. He's like, Hey, buddy, wake up. I made you some hot cakes and some water. So he eats it, lays back down. He wakes up, and then the angel's like, Hey, the Lord's going to be passing by here. If you go up to the mountains, if you want to catch him. And so he runs up, goes up to the mountain. There's wind. God, Lord's not in the wind. There's earthquake, not in the earthquake. There's a fire, not in the fire. And then everything stops. And then he's like, Hey, what's up? He's like, Oh, Lord, let me tell you. I don't know if you know, they've been killing all your prophets. I'm left. What's up? Lord's like, Hey, you go back into town, anoint, what's his name? Started with H. Haziel, as make him the king
Haziel.
over Aram, and then you're gonna anoint Jehu over Israel, and then Elisha, he's gonna be a prophet there, I guess, in Israel. And then whoever escapes the sword, and then if the whoever doesn't get killed by his Hazael, Jehu will kill, and vice versa. And then you'll leave 7,000. Yeah, this is just a war plan. And that, woo, and my whole thing is like, so do you kiss Baal? That was weird to me. I know you bow down to statues, but like, I didn't know people kissed them, but that would make sense.
Apparently that's what's happening here.
Yeah, if you're boiling it, or if you're worshiping an idol, you might as well kiss it. And then he told, I didn't get this I don't know what this was. I guess it just means Elisha and Elijah hook up, is this last part where he's like, Hey, kiss your, I'm gonna kiss my mama and daddy goodbye. I'm following you, and I'm gonna kill my cow. You
Is that what
inspired
you
yet?
got from that?
That is what I got from that.
No, I'm not. And I wanted to say this too, because I won't say names, but we talked about this before we got on mic. there's a prominent member in the arts community that has now passed away. Shout out to him, mentor to me. I bring this up because I know that I'm going to go pay my respects when they have the service, and this person was very religious, at least for the Black people's appearances' sake. I don't know personally, but Kat, I just don't know how to do it anymore, man.
You
I
don't
don't
you don't know
I
how
go
to
in
like.
space. I feel nothing. I feel nothing when people bring up God or anything like that.
Okay, here's the
I
thing. I
feel
think
nothing.
because like you said, we've been doing this almost 4 years. I think more people know we do the podcast. So because I've noticed like people in my life have made more of a show of being religious since.
Feel the same.
Okay, you've noticed this phenomenon as
Mm-hmm.
well. Everything is
Well, I know
praise
this
you.
just directly from my family because my grandma, my mom, all of them, even my uncles are like, whatever. They bring up God, thank God, da 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 da. But like, my grandma just started going back to church after like 20 years, maybe 30, because like she barely went to church when I was coming up. So it's like, come on, man. And I'm not saying you can't change, but it's just like, what are we doing, man? Like, I feel like our time and our resources could be spent so better in other areas. And I mean, these are all talks we've had before. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think it's so funny because I think we switched places because in the beginning, I think I was a little more like vitriolic, but now I'm just kind of like, what are you gonna do? I like my whole thing is like I like being around my family. I just pivot. I'm like I let them say what they're gonna say, and I just don't react to it. Like I treat it like how I would when people bring up Santa Claus because then I'm being a bitch if I bring up the fact that you're on some bullshit. So I'm just gonna, do your thing, and I'll just wait till you're done with that, and then we'll get back to something we can both talk about. And then I walk away feeling superior, knowing that I'm the more polite person because I didn't bring up something that I know makes them uncomfortable.
I also feel the same. When it is brought up, I just kind of let it go. I don't try to shit on people or prove wrong or right anymore. But I do, and we don't have time for this conversation today, but it stuck out to me because there's been instances lately where that religious mentality is still there, even in people who are not necessarily religious. What I mean by that is like I was having a conversation with somebody and they were like, "Oh, the man is supposed to provide. You're not living in your manhood fully because you're not being a great provider." And I was just like, why does this sound like religious subtext? Like this sounds like bullshit.
Well, it's traditional gender roles. I think I've been listening to like an X-Men podcast because of the X-Men 97 that's out and stuff like that. And just
Nerd.
it, thank you. And so why it's persisted over the years is because it's a fantastic metaphor for the human resistance to change. And this idea of we need to stay like this because I already have this figured out. And it's like, nope, it's not how life works. It always progresses. The sooner you accept
Mhm.
that, the better off you'll be. But, you know, people, um, for one, church provides a very essential social need that a lot of people have. So if you're someone who um let's just say like you're into the arts, like where else can you be in a play or sing in a choir or be able to express yourself in that way? So a lot of times people, when if you criticize church, you're criticizing their creative outlet. So I'm just, you know
Which
like I said,
sucks
I'm
because
just
I'm
happy.
never
I'm just
attacking this from that.
I know. I'm just talking about how other people see it. And I also just revel in the fact that I'm proud to be an American where we have the First Amendment, which is I don't have to be a part of,
American.
yeah, where
You
I
know
don't
a
have to be
song?
a part
That's a song,
of,
right?
yes, I don't have to be a part of any religion that I don't want to be. So, even though we do, um, evangelical Christians do have an outsized political influence right now in our government. I think over time it's going to dissipate. And people would be wise to look at the history of countries like Iran, where people think that you can't regress. Like when we look at places where women are being oppressed, where you have to wear the burqa and they impose purdah, which is basically you can't leave the house without a man. Like
Mm.
they haven't been like that the whole time. Like they had, women in government and like mini skirts and all that stuff in the 70s. All of that turned around when America helped the Shah of Iran overthrow their government and set up a religious theocracy. Like that stuff can happen for real. And when the people with guns are telling you, like, hey, we don't need no Jezebels out here walking the streets, like all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's getting very real. So I'm just saying that's why we're pushing back a little bit on this whole like, oh, it's so great.
Yeah, I just again, we don't have the time today. Also, sidebar, I completely this is why you do the prep work before we do this.
Sure.
I had a workaround to use the microphone,
Uh-huh.
and I just realized that I could have done that, but now we're
It's okay.
recording
It's
because
fine.
I have the dongle which I could have attached and
It's
whatever.
all,
Anyway,
and you never know. There might have been problems with that too. So let's just
yeah.
plow ahead. It's just part of new computer issues that, it's just part of the process. But yeah, that oh god, this last one's super long. I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. But at least stuff's happening. We're not just listing names.
Yeah, sure. I feel like that's what I did was list names, and I don't feel like my chapter was or my verse is a chapter. My chapter was engaging.
I feel like a lot happened. I mean, if you think about it, like if this were the plot of the movie, like if this were like, Israel's last prophet, you know what I mean? Like he's the last guy who's able to keep it going. Like who else is gonna kill animals the right way?
I feel like we're in Walking Dead levels of storytelling where it's just the same thing over and over again at this point. Like
Mm.
God
I
visits
never watched
guy,
Walking
tells
Dead.
well, it's rehashed about threat happens. We need to eliminate threat. We need to find security. Oh, we run into another threat. We need to eliminate threat. Now we need to go find new security. Like it's just like I feel like
Yeah.
that's the same thing that's happening here. Where God visits guy, guy gets message to go do something, takes over this place, becomes ruler of this place. Oh, he's either killed or wherever. God visits another guy, tells him to go to this other place. Like it's just I don't know, man.
You're kind of
It's not
describing all
engaging.
of human history. I
This
think it
is not
keeps happening
engaging to
again
me.
because this is what keeps happening. Like that's the thing. Like that's why history is so fascinating. If you study history, you know the future.
But at least I don't know. Maybe like reading, for instance, Robert Greene does a lot of historical
Hmm.
referencing in his books. I don't know. It's just the way he writes is very fascinating to me. Whether it be 48 Laws of Power, Art of Seduction, like the way he uses historical context to get a point across, I think is great. Maybe the Bible could learn something from Robert Greene.
Well, that's not how the space-time continuum works. Like Green came after the Bible. He actually uses
But
biblical examples in his work, so it wouldn't work out.
do you think, and this is another thing, and then we can move on. This is my last point. Also, what gets me disappointed and upset about the Bible is the fact that everything else in life has an update. Your phone gets an update, technology advances. This is the only thing that just stays the same. Like even other
That's what
books, they
that's
get
why it's
they
called
get
conservative.
updated.
Like the whole point of it is to stay the same. Like, yeah, like it wouldn't have the appeal of being the everlasting rock of God's word if it changed. Like that's its whole selling point. Its procedures are its powers. Moving
So
on to
there's the
First
root of
Kings
it all.
20. Yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
Ahab's
Go
wars
ahead.
with the Arameans. King Ben-Hadad of Aram gathered all his army together. 32 kings were with him, along with horses and chariots. He marched against Samaria, laid siege to it, and attacked it. He sent messengers into the city to King Ahab of Israel and said to him, "Thus says Ben-Hadad, Your silver and gold are mine. Your fairest wives and children are also mine. The king of Israel answered, As you say, my lord, O king, I am yours and all that I have. The messengers came again and said, Thus says Ben-Hadad, I send to you, saying, Deliver to me your silver and gold, your wives and children. Nevertheless, I will send my servants to you tomorrow about this time, and they shall search your house and the houses of your servants and lay hands on whatever pleases them and take it away. Then the king of Israel called all the elders of the land and said, Look now, see how this man is seeking trouble, for he sent to me for my wives, my children, my silver, my gold, and I did not refuse him. Then all the elders and all the people said to him, Do not listen or consent. So he said to the messengers of Ben-Hadad, Tell my lord the king, all that you first demand of your servant I will do, but this thing I cannot do. The messengers left and brought him word again. Ben-Hadad said to him, and Ben-Hadad sent to him and said, The gods do so to me, and more also, if the dust of Samaria will provide a handful for each of the people who follow me. The king of Israel answered, Tell him, one who puts on armor should not brag like one who takes it off. Oof. Then when Ben-Hadad heard this message, now he had been drinking with the kings in the booths, he said to his men, Take your positions. And they took their positions against the city. Prophetic opposition to Ahab. Then a certain prophet came to the king. I don't know if it's Ahab or I'm going to say King Ahab. Then a certain prophet came up to King Ahab of Israel and said, Thus says the Lord, Have you seen all this great magnitude? Look, I will give it to you into your hand today, and you shall know that I am the Lord. Ahab said, By whom? He said, Thus says the Lord, by the young men who served the district governors. Then he said, Who shall begin the battle? He answered, You. Then he mustered the young men who served the district governors, 232. After them, he mustered all the people of Israel, 7,000. They went out at noon when Ben-Hadad was drinking himself drunk in the booths. He said, and he and the 32 kings allied with him. The young men who served the district governors went out first. Ben-Hadad had sent out scouts, and they reported to him, Men have come out from Samaria. He said, If they have come out for peace, take them alive. If they've come out for war, take them alive. Okay. But these had already come out of the city, the young men who served the district governors and the army that followed them. Each killed his man. The Arameans fled, and Israel pursued them, but King Ben-Hadad of Aram escaped on horse with the cavalry. The king of Israel went out, attacked the horses and chariots, and defeated the Arameans with a great slaughter. Then the prophet approached the king of Israel and said to him, Come, strengthen yourself and consider well what you have to do. For in the spring, the king of Aram will come up against you. The Arameans are defeated. The servants of the king of Aram said to him, Their gods are gods of the hills, so they were stronger than we. But let us fight against them in the plain, and surely we will be stronger than they. Also, do this. Remove the kings, each from his post, and put commanders in place of them, and muster an army like an army that you have lost, horse for horse and chariot for chariot. Then we will fight against them in the plain, and surely we shall be stronger than they. He heeded their voice and did so. In the spring, Ben-Hadad mustered the Arameans and went up to Aphek to fight against Israel. After the Israelites had been mustered and provisioned, they went out to engage them, and the people of Israel encamped opposite them like two little flocks of goats, while the Arameans filled the country. A man of God approached and said to the king of Israel, Thus says the Lord, because the Arameans have said the Lord is the God of the hills, but he is not the God of the valleys. Therefore, I will give all this great multitude into your hand, and you shall know that I am the Lord. They encamped on the opposite one another 7 days. Then on the seventh day, the battle began. The Israelites killed 100,000 Aramean foot soldiers in 1 day. The rest fled into the city of Aphek, and the wall fell on 27,000 men that were left. Ben-Hadad also fled and entered the city to hide. His servants said to him, Look, we have heard that the king of the house of Israel our merciful kings, let us put sackcloth around our waist and ropes on our head and go to the king of Israel. Perhaps he will spare your life. Okay. So they tied sackcloth around their waist, put ropes on their heads, and went to the king of Israel and said, your servant Ben-Hadad says, please let me live. And he said, is he still alive? He is my brother. Now the men were watching for an omen. They quickly took it up from him and said, yes, Ben-Hadad is your brother. Then he said, go and bring him. So Ben-Hadad came out to him, and he had him come up into the chariot. Ben-Hadad had said to him, I will restore the towns that my father took from your father. You may establish bazaars for yourself in Damascus, as my father did in Samaria. The king of Israel responded, I will let you go on those terms. So he made a treaty with him and let him go. After he killed 100,000, okay, whatever. The prophet, but that was the other team. Okay, whatever. A prophet condemns Ahab. At the command of the Lord, a certain member of a company of prophets said to another, strike me. But the man refused to strike him, and he said to him, because you have not obeyed the voice of the Lord, as soon as you have left me, a lion will kill you. Then when he had left him, a lion met him and killed him. So the men hit him, striking and wounding him. Oh, then he found another man and said, strike me. So the man hit him, striking and wounding him. Then the prophet departed, waiting for the king along the road. He disguised himself with the bandage over his eyes. As the king passed, he cried to the king and said, your servant went out into the thick of battle, and a soldier turned and brought a man to me and said, guard this man. If he is missing, your life shall be given for his life, or else you shall pay a talent of silver. While your servant was busy here and there, he was gone. The king of Israel said to him, so shall your judgment be. You yourself have decided it. Then he quickly took the bandage away from his eyes. The king of Israel recognized him as one of the prophets. Then he said to him, thus says the Lord, because you have let the man go who I have devoted to destruction, therefore your life shall be for his life, and your people for his people. The king of Israel set out towards home, resentful and sullen, and came to Samaria. I feel like that was a lot of gobbledygook.
Yes, it was. But what I got from it is that there was an Armenian threat, or Aramean threat. Aramean threat?
Arameans.
But I mean, that demanded what?
Arameans?
Which are different than Armenians, right?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, because of that threat.
I mean, they said Damascus. I feel like Syria and Damascus kind of like around Armenia.
I don't know. Because Kim Kardashian is Armenian. So are these like, when I envision them, so I envision people that look like that?
No, this would have been like
this could even be
4,000 years ago.
Easily solvable.
Like populations. But yeah, this was a lot of killing. And it looks like, I don't know why they keep saying a certain prophet. Why couldn't he just have a name? They're treating him like a woman.
No, it's not the same.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Armenian in Aramaic, which is what we're reading about. Aramaic.
Amharic.
What?
I don't know. I'm just saying A words.
They're different languages and belong to essentially different countries.
Okay, cool. Okay, so it starts off with Ben-Hadad kind of like being a jerk and saying, hey, send me your stuff. It sounds like he's kind of, like a bully.
He demanded that Ahab surrender his wealth and his family.
And then Ahab had to go to the elders to be like, what should I do? And it's like, you should try being a man. And they're just like, what are you talking about? Like, no, you can't let him do all that.
I just got that image of Marlon Brando.
Of course you did. It was a perfect impersonation. You could try acting like a man. So yes.
Also very
but Israel defeats them because the Lord is the Lord because the Lord got mad because it was like, oh, I heard you were talking shit about how I can beat you in the mountains, but I can't beat you in the valleys. So guess what? I'm going to kill a bunch of you. I'm allow them because I am the Lord. Apparently I'm in charge of who gets to kill who. And then he hires a hitman. Like he was like, oh, my whole thing was like, when a certain prophet was like, "Oh, hit me." Like, okay, what? Like, if some guy just comes up to you and says, "Hit me," I'd be like, "No." He's like, "Because you said no, God's gonna kill you with a lion." It's like, okay, dude. And then they're like, "Yeah," and then he got killed by a lion. So the next dude was like, "When I say hit me, you hit me."
Yeah, I don't I don't understand the unnecessary. I don't know. It just feels like a lot of people die that maybe don't need to die, and you know, nobody loves action. I'm not gonna say nobody, but I love action as much as the next person. But the body counts in here just crazy.
I thought it was weird that he spared the life of Ben Hadad. Like Ahab towards
Um,
the end, like he ended up winning. So there the people were like, "Oh, if you go to him in sackcloth and like surrender, he might let you live." And he did. I laughed at that part because I thought it was gonna be like, yeah, right, like he's gonna spare him. I'm like, okay, like
well, yeah, because he fucking kind of set him up for failure in a lot of ways. So I mean,
what do
I
you
feel like
mean? Like, why wouldn't you just
Ahab.
kill him? Like if you had somebody who was
No,
like, I'm a
that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you. Like it's weird that he did
okay,
that.
okay, and then um this last part where so your judgment shall be, I didn't get this last story at all with the prophet confronting Ahab on the road and the Lord, because you've let the man go who I oh okay, so the Lord agrees with us. That's why the prophet was sent to warn Ahab. It's like, because you didn't kill Ben Hadad, then um thus says the Lord, because you have
Well,
let
because
the man go who I've devoted to destruction, therefore your life shall be here for his life and your people his people. So it's like, so God was just like, I'm just let everybody die. Like I was mad at Ben Hadad for talking shit. I killed all his people. And since you let him live, I'm gonna kill you and all your people. Cool.
yeah, yes. Or according to Google Gemini, the prophet who warns Ahab that his failure to kill Ben Hadad will endanger Israel and the which will cause future troubles
So in
for
real
now.
time, like why wouldn't he have just killed him? Like why would you get squeamish at this point? Like you've been killing away.
I don't know why doesn't fucking that's like in is it Macbeth or Hamlet? One of them where he just doesn't kill his uncle right away. He like takes forever to fucking kill his uncle. This is Shakespeare
That
quote.
makes sense though, because that's his uncle. Like it makes sense you don't,
But
even if
his
you're,
uncle killed his dad.
I was gonna say, even if you have a family member who did, something, like it is
This Hamlet.
difficult. Yeah. And
Yeah.
here's the other thing. Like it's so grimy in those situations too. His uncle might have been his real daddy. Like that might have been part of the resentment.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like you
that's
never
also true.
you know, so but I mean once again these are fake people, it doesn't matter, but um and if these were like in real life scenarios, it is harder killing people you know. So my whole thing is like, was there some sort of interpersonal relationship between Ben Hadad and Ahab that is maybe
Yeah.
kind of the subtext of this story? Because to me, that's the only way it makes sense. If
And
he was just the king of some other place, and we're using the word
like they
king
was
pretty
just
lightly, these are just
man,
warlords.
that shit gets thrown around.
Yeah, he was like there were like 32 kings. I was like, okay, like so these are just rich niggas.
Or maybe I just don't have a because I was literally thinking that like with hip hop. I was listening to some rap shit the other day, and everybody kept referring to themselves as kings, and I was just like, man, we use that word so lightly these days.
And they are definitely peasants. Um but yeah, this whole thing, and like I said, a lot of this really kind of like especially male driven hostility, it is reminding me a lot of hip hop as well. So it's funny you mentioned that.
Oh well,
Or modern,
hip
I should
hop
say
has a
modern
lot
hip
of.
hop. Modern
I feel
straight
like hip
male
hop
hip
since the
hop.
beginning has had a lot of inherent misogyny and toxic masculinity,
No, you're
and
talking about
yeah,
human culture, not just hip hop. Hip hop
Yeah,
started
but
out it was just
my
party music. It wasn't like especially, it was just as sexist as anything else. Our society was sexist. Or is sexist, I should
well,
say.
as somebody who got a lot of his framing of what it meant to be a man from rap music, you know, I can only look
If
back
you
on it
had
and
gotten
say,
it from the
damn, man.
Bible, it'd be sexist too.
I mean, I did, but luckily I'm a free thinker and was able to just be like,
Yay.
yeah, I don't fuck with
He
this.
had access to a lot of calories. It's easier to fall for stuff when you don't have enough calories. Your brain uses a lot of
Is you hungry?
calories. Yes, your brain uses a
Oh, you say
ton of
because you're hungry.
calories. Yeah, you need to have like a good amount of calories for your brain to work properly. So, and water. Like I feel like not
I know I
everyone
can't
was
wait to drink
properly
some
hydrated.
water.
Hmm?
Like I can't wait to drink. I haven't drank anything today yet, and I've been trying to drink water when you first get up in the morning because they said one that rehydrates you from, sweating in your sleep. Even you sweat even when you don't think you've been sweating, and two, it
Of
just
course.
also prepares you for the day and it fills your stomach so you're not as hungry.
Yeah, and it opens up your digestive system. Like you got to think of everything kind of settling down.
I will go ahead and start Naboth, 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 Naboth's
Naboths.
vineyard, Naboth's
Naboths?
vineyard.
Yes, Naboth.
Naboth. It's not too old. Okay, Naboth's vineyard. 1 Kings 21. Later, the following events took place. Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard in Jezreel, beside the palace of King Ahab of Samaria. And Ahab said to Naboth, give me your vineyard so that I may have it for a vegetable garden because it is near my house. I will give you a better vineyard for it, or it seems good to you, or if it seems good to you, I will give you its value in money. But Naboth said to Ahab, the Lord forbid that I shall give you my ancestral inheritance. Ahab went home resentful and sullen because of what Naboth the Jezreelite had said to him, for he had said, I will not give you my ancestral inheritance. He lay down in his bed and turned away his face and would not eat. His wife Jezebel came to him and said, why are you so depressed that you will not eat? He said to her, because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite and said to him, give me your vineyard for money, or else, if you prefer, I will give you another vineyard for it. But he answered, I will not give you my vineyard. His wife Jezebel said to him, do you now govern Israel? Get up, eat some food, and be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal. She sent the letters to the elders and the nobles who lived with both in the city. She wrote in the letters, proclaim a fast and seat Naboth at the head of the assembly. Seat two scoundrels opposite him and have them bring a charge against him, saying, you have cursed God and the king. Then take him out and stone him to death. The men of the city, the elders and the nobles who lived in the city did as Jezebel had sent word to them, just as it was written in the letters that she had sent to them. They proclaimed a fast and seated Naboth at the head of the assembly. The two scoundrels came in opposite of him and sat opposite of him, and the scoundrels brought a charge against Naboth in the presence of the people, saying that both cursed God and the king. So they took him outside the city and stoned him to death. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth had been stoned, he is dead. As soon as Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned and was dead, Jezebel said to Ahab, go take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money, for Naboth is not alive but dead. As soon as Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, Ahab set out to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelites, take possession of it. Elijah pronounces God's sentence. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, go down to meet King Ahab of Israel, who rules in Samaria. He is now in the vineyard of Naboth, where he has gone to take possession. You shall say to him, thus says the Lord, have you killed and also taken possession? You shall say to him, thus says the Lord, in this place where dogs licked up the blood of Naboth, dogs will also lick up your blood. Ahab said to Elijah, have you found me, O my enemy? He answered, I have found you, because you have sold yourself to do what is evil in the sight of the Lord. I will bring I will bring disaster on you. I will consume you, and I will cut off, and I will cut off from Ahab every male, bond or free, in Israel. And I'll make your house like the house of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, son of Ahijah, because you have provoked me to anger and caused Israel to sin. Also concerning Jezebel, the Lord said, the dog shall eat Jezebel with the bounds of Jezreel. Anyone belonging to Ahab who dies in this city, the dog shall eat, and anyone of his who dies in the open country, the birds of the air shall eat. Indeed, there was no one like Ahab who had sold himself to do what was evil in the sight of the Lord, urged on by his wife Jezebel. He acted most abominably in going after idols, as the Amorites had done when the Lord drove out before the Israelites. When Ahab heard those words, he tore his clothes and put sackcloth over his bare face. He fasted, lay in the sackcloth, and went about dejectedly. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite. Have you seen how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Because he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring disaster in his days, but in his son's days, I will bring the disaster on his house. Thanks be to God. What the fuck, man? This was crazy.
I gotta say, everyone was just so unreasonable, just start to finish in the story. except
Absolutely.
for except for was it Naboth? Naboth seemed pretty reasonable.
And he got killed just for saying, hey, man, I don't want to sell you my land. Like, sorry.
Yeah, which makes sense because, like, let's just say you've established a successful vineyard, which is not easy to do in modern times with all our technology. So just imagine, like, you have like a family vineyard that's been running successfully, and Ahab just comes and he was like, oh, this is near my house and I want a vegetable garden. I'll take this. I'll give you another vineyard. And it's like, well, no, like, obviously, like, if you don't want it, I don't want it. And he's like, well, I'll give you some money. And it's like, no, like, and like, you have to think he probably had like kids and stuff. Everybody's just happy. Like, you're not trying to shake shit up. And then he like goes home and pouts, and his wife's like, what's wrong? And he's like, Booth wouldn't give me his land. And she's like, nut up, man. All you got to do is kill him. Like, that's how you've gotten. And to be fair, up until now, that does seem how like everyone's been getting the land is just killing who was ever
It's
there before.
crazy.
So it's like, yeah, like she just came up with a longer plan for it. But it's like, and can I just say this is the same plan David had, and God seemed to get over that pretty quickly, or the Lord seemed to get over that pretty quickly. Instead it wasn't land, it was over a woman, but he still killed, Uriah the Hittite, on some trying to be slick
It's
stuff.
just,
So
yeah.
yeah, and then to just be like, okay, so and also, this is kind of the Lord's fault because if the punishment for, just saying stuff wasn't death, Naboth didn't have to die. Like, they just lied on him. And then because that crime had a death sentence, like, what? This is a bad society. I'm just going to say it.
It's terrible, terrible society. I don't, yeah, I don't agree with anything that anybody did other than the both. So yeah, it's unfortunate that he had to die for some bullshit or
And the
just telling
fact,
somebody
too,
no.
like, yeah, that's a really bad rule. I'm sorry. We would have been so stoned to death so many times.
Yeah. Well, and again, just I don't see how anybody could read this particular story and just be like, "This is all justified." This is like, how do you even spin this? Well, because he's doing it in the name of God. Well, I don't even know how you spin the story to make it relate to our value system in a positive way.
Well, I mean, in it, if you ignore a lot of the key details, it does look like the Lord is punching up his moral standards where he's like, hey, no more killing people for their stuff.
Well, where was that before? Like
He
the whole
just, like you
thousands of
said,
generations.
this was after the 12-step program. He's
It's
remarried,
literally
settled down. There's less testosterone going through the system. You've seen it happen before. He's a new person.
this literally reminds me of. I know you're not gonna go see Planet of the Apes, but then when
Nope.
Kingdom of the Planet of the
Oh,
Apes
but
and
I
how
did watch
they
a synopsis video on it.
and it very much relates to what I feel like this book has done and what we do in society, where we take people's teachings and twist them for our own agendas. And it's like, no, that's not even what that guy or gal stood for. But whatever. I think they explore that in a really interesting way with the new film. So yeah.
Oh, you know what? I didn't realize there's only one more chapter of First Kings left. I think we should do it real quick because then we start Second Kings next time.
Oh,
It's more killing. Does that convince?
it's very long too. It's very long.
Here
It's
we go.
53.
Here we go. Joint campaign with Judah against Aram. For 3 years, Aram and Israel continued without war, but in the third year, the king Jehoshaphat of Judah came down to the king of Israel. The king of Israel said to his servants, "Do you know that Ramoth Gilead belongs to us, yet we are doing nothing to take it out of the hands of the king of Aram?" He said to Jehoshaphat, "Will you go with me to the battle of Ramoth Gilead?" Jehoshaphat replied to the king of Israel, "I am as you are, my people are your people, my horses are your horses." But Jehoshaphat also said to the king of Israel, "Inquire first for word of the Lord." Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 of them, and said to them, "Shall I go to the battle against Ramoth Gilead, or shall I refrain?" They said, "Go up, for the Lord will give it into the hand of the king." But Jehoshaphat said, "Is there no other prophet of the Lord here, of whom we may inquire?" The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "There is still one other by whom we may inquire of the Lord, Micaiah, son of Imyah, but I hate him, for he never prophesies anything favorable about me, but only disaster." Jehoshaphat said, "Let the king not say such a thing." Then the king of Israel summoned the officer and said, "Bring quickly Micaiah, son of Imyah." Now the king of Israel and the king Jehoshaphat of Judah were sitting on their thrones, arrayed in their robes, at the threshing floor at the entrance of the gate of Samaria, and all the prophets were prophesying before them. Zedekiah, son of Chinah, made for himself horns of iron, and he said, "Thus says the Lord, with these you shall gore the Arameans until they are destroyed." All the prophets were prophesying and the same and saying, "Go up to Ramoth Gilead and triumph. The Lord will give it into the hand of the king." Micaiah predicts failure. The messenger who had gone to summon Micaiah said to him, "Look, the words of the prophets with one accord are favorable to the king. Let your word be like the word of one of them and speak favorably." But Micaiah says, "As the Lord lives, whatever the Lord says to me, that I will speak." When he had come to the king said to him, "Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we refrain?" He answered, "Go up and triumph. The Lord will give it into the hand of the king." The king said to him, "How many times must I make you swear to tell me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord?" Then Micaiah said, "I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains like sheep that have no shepherd. And the Lord said, 'These have no master. Let each one go home in peace.'" The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, "Did I not tell you that he would not prophesy anything favorable about me, but only disaster?" Then Micaiah said, "Therefore, hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne with all his host of heaven standing beside him to the right and to the left of him. And the Lord said, 'Who will entice Ahab so that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead?' Then one said one thing and another said another, until the Spirit came forward and stood before the Lord, saying, 'I will entice him.' How?" The Lord asked him. He replied, "I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets." Then the Lord said, "You are to entice him and you are to succeed. Go out and do it." So you see, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all your prophets. The Lord has decreed disaster for you. That's a dick move. Then Zedekiah, son of Chinah, came up to Micaiah and slapped him on the cheek and said, "Which way did the Spirit of the Lord pass for me to speak to you?" Micaiah replied, You will find out on that day when you go in to hide in an inner chamber. The king of Israel then ordered, take Micaiah and return him to Amon, the governor of the city, and to Joash, the king's son, and say, thus says the king, put this fellow in prison and feed him on reduced rations of bread and water until I come in peace. Micaiah said, if you return in peace, the Lord has not spoken. If you return in peace, the Lord has not spoken by me. And he said, hear you peoples, all of you, defeat and death of Ahab. So the king of Israel and King Jehoshaphat of Judah went up to Ramoth Gilead. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into battle, but you wear your robes. So the king of Israel disguised himself and went into battle. Now the king of Aram had commanded 32 captains of his chariots, fight with no one small or great, but only with the king of Israel. When the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, they said, it is surely the king of Israel. So they turned to fight against him, and Jehoshaphat cried out. When the captains of the chariot saw that it was not the king of Israel, but they turned back from pursuing him. But a certain man drew his bow and unknowingly struck the king of Israel between the scale of armor and the breastplate. So he said to the driver of his chariot, turn around and carry me out of battle, for I am wounded. The battle grew hot that day, and the king was propped up on his chariot facing the Arameans until at evening he died. The blood from the wound had flowed into the bottom of the chariot. Then about sunset, a shout went out through the army, every man in the city and every man to his country. So the king died and was brought to Samaria. They buried the king in Samaria. They washed the chariot by the pool of Samaria. The dogs licked up his blood, and the prostitutes washed themselves in it. Ew. According to the word of the Lord that he had spoken. Now the rest of the acts of Ahab and all that he did, and the ivory houses that he built, and all the cities he built, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Israel? So Ahab slept with his ancestors, and his son Ahaziah succeeded him. Jehoshaphat reigns over Judah. Jehoshaphat, son of Asa, began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of King Ahab of Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Azubah, daughter of Shilhi. He walked in all the way of his father Asa. He did not turn away from it, doing what he was right in the sight of the Lord. Yet the high places were not taken away, and the people still sacrificed and offered incense in high places. Jehoshaphat also made peace with the king of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat and the power that he showed and how he waged war, are they not written in the books of the annals of the kings of Judah? The remnants of the male temple prostitutes were still in the land of days of his father Asa he exterminated. There was no king in Edom. His deputy was king. Jehoshaphat made ships of terrace types to go to Ophir for gold, but they did not go, for the ships were wrecked by Ezionon-Geber. Then Ahaziah, son of Ahab, said to Jehoshaphat, let my servants go with your servants in the ships. But Jehoshaphat was not willing. Jehoshaphat slept with his ancestors and was buried with his ancestors in the city of his father David. His son Jehoram succeeded him. Ahaziah reigns over Israel. Ahaziah, son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel in Samaria in the 17th year of King Jehoshaphat of Judah. He reigned 2 years over Israel. He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and walked in the way of his father and mother and in the way of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who caused Israel to sin. He served Baal and worshipped him. He provoked the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger just as his father had done.
So I finally got what was coming to him. And
I guess. I mean, I feel like everybody's getting what's. I mean, this is live by the sword, die by the sword. You're just perpetuating a cycle of violence.
yeah,
With mind games, though, like that was really messed up of the Lord to send like a lying spirit to fuck with it. Like this is just a very convenient way for like why there's different prophecies. It's like, oh well, sometimes God's talking to us, but sometimes he's just like gaslighting us just to keep things interesting. And the fact King was it Ahab, he was like, man, I hate talking to Micaiah. He never has anything good to say about me, man.
I mean, again, I don't understand how anybody can right now look at this and be like, oh yeah, this is how I want to model my life. There's so much, I mean, you said it before, there's so much better material out there where people can look and learn and people yet neglect to read that any other books but this book, which just
Like I
baffles me.
said, the people who aren't they aren't reading this either.
Yeah, but I don't know. You know what I've learned, and you said this to me before, and I've started to pick up on this. Being able to read books from other people, it does allow you to get a different perspective. For instance, I just finished Page Boy by Elliot Page, who is an actor, but pretty much known for being a child actor up until recently, and then they made the transition to become a man. And whereas that book is not like necessarily phenomenal for me, it did make me empathize more with just like the trans community. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe people are afraid that they might be changed by reading things. Maybe they just don't fucking like read. I mean, I've heard plenty of people say they just don't fucking like reading. So,
I mean, like
but
you said, that's the whole point of being conservative is not changing. Like it
no,
literally
and I don't agree. I agree with that statement, but I don't like that mentality at all. I actually do not mesh well with people who don't challenge themselves to become better, like who are just content. I mean, I think there's a balance that can be had where it's like you don't necessarily you need to be happy with what you have, but also still continue to strive for better.
yeah,
And
you have to hover between contentment and ambition, right?
yes,
Like you
yes, I like
can't,
that.
yeah. Like I got that from Jenna Fisher from Office Ladies. It's a Zen principle.
And I think it's true, and I don't think enough, at least in the United States, I don't think that's taught enough. I think we are just taught to have unbridled ambition, and that's it. Um,
You know what I would like?
in a business perspective,
You've been talking a lot about like like you said, you're reading people's stories and that changes you. And that's like awesome. And I feel like it enriches your life, instead of being like, oh wow, like, that's kind of amazing. I've been like super into wanting to listen to alternative perspectives on like classic stories. Not classic stories, but let's say for instance, Sex and the City, like it's on Netflix now. So I've kind of been rewatching it. I still like love slash hate it. I love Samantha. Like Sarah, like the Curie character kind of grinds my gears sometimes, especially her stuff with Big. But I would love to watch an episode of Sex in the City from Big's perspective and his inner monologue. Like
he ain't great either.
my whole thing is it would just be like now that I'm rewatching it though, he was very clear with her, like, I don't want it with you. You cannot meet my mama. Like, I'm not going to marry you. Like, he's just like, but we really are good in the bedroom and you're fun to hang out with, but I don't want that with you. And she's just like, no, I'm sticking around until you fall in love with me. Like, that's pretty much the premise of the show. And then it's really fucked up because in the end they end up getting married, and in real life that dude does not marry you. So,
I
but
watched
but
something
I
about
also but I
that.
want to bring to the Bible. I would like to read some of these chapters from the priest of Baal's perspective, because the balls keep showing up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, what was their whole stick? Like, I mean, it can't be much worse than this. They're just killing people all the time. So their whole thing is like, well, they're sacrificed their children to the priest of Baal. It's like, y'all do that too. So it's like, what are you talking about? Who's that one dude who sacrificed his daughter because he won a battle? He was like, oh, if you let me kill all these people, the first thing that I'll kill, I'll sacrifice to you as soon as I get home, thinking it was gonna be like a chicken or something, and it was his daughter. So it was like, oh well, I gotta kill you.
Oh, I watched a thing about Sex and the City too, but in the essence of time, we don't have to get into that right now.
I would love to do a whole
Uh,
episode of Sex and City.
it's a terrible show, and it's giving women unrealistic expectations in a lot of ways. It's a very toxic show too, because
It
Carrie is actually
is
a toxic friend.
real
When you really
bad.
break it down, she's not a good friend,
She's
and
not.
that's
She just has good
explored a lot in
outfits. What
this.
have I been saying for the longest? You can get away with all kinds of shit if you dress cute. You're never
That
gonna see the Pope in a tracksuit.
well, I think you could. I think a step further is you can get away with all kinds of shit when one, people like you, and two, you do you produce good material. Like Kanye West is a perfect example of that.
Oh yeah, we see that in entertainment all the time. But like, yeah, I brought that point up too on Ghost, like with Power. Like people were just like you like
That's
this
not
character.
it. It's not it. I'm not. No,
If he dressed
that is
mummy, you
not.
would not like Ghost.
No, that has nothing to do with it.
It does.
And it actually has
Join
nothing
us
to
next
do with.
time on the Bible breakdown, where Kat
Okay,
will win another argument
that was
against
rude.
TK.
That was. It's not winning by just cutting me off or
Nope,
not
I've
hearing my
declared
side.
myself the winner. I won. Next time I got a wait. Hold on, I'm getting a message from the Lord. What's that? Oh, I did win that argument. I'm sorry. I got a message from the Lord saying I did. I totally won that one.
I guess I must believe it since it is the Lord.
Yeah, this is the Bible, and that's how it works.
Mhm.
Yep. I didn't even have to kill an animal.
You not. Well, okay. So next time on the Bible breakdown, we got 2 Kings 1, 2, and 3. We'll see Elijah denounce Ahaziah. We'll see Elijah ascend to heaven, and we will see Jehoram reign over Israel, and there's going to be also a war with Moab. So more war, more killing, more people dying, more of the same.
For this to be a religion of peace.
Not very peaceful.
Well, I guess if it just, with the homophones in English, maybe it depends on what type of peace you're talking about. Because it's like there's a PC over here, there's a PC over there,
Maybe that's what they meant when they said it
Yeah.
originally. Peace.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of peace. Well, thanks for your time today. We knocked out another. So we're starting our 12th book of the Bible next time. Look at us go. So we're averaging
After 4
about, what is
years.
that? Yeah. So that's 3
Like
books
3
a
books a
year.
year.
We'll
not
be done
bad.
with this in no time.
Yeah, oh my gosh. All right.
We might have to start recording
Your
more
body-
often. You could,
Yeah.
right?
What are you
No,
saying?
I'm just saying, like, we might have to start recording more often if we're ever going to get through this thing, like in our lifetimes.
Yeah, I was up to going 2 days a week, but that can be discussed off air.
I was gonna say you be no, and it's your body belongs to you, so don't use it to murder people.
Be curious, not judgmental. Bible Breakdown Podcast at gmail.com. Until next time.